Osmosis vs. Dialysis. Part 2. Dialysis. You will need plastic cups, syringe closed at one end, funnel, whey boats, envelope of diastics, about 5, transfer or dropper pipettes, spoon, dialysis tubing and string, starch, sodium chloride salt, glucose, spatula, balance, iodine solution, potato, knife or other instrument to cut the potato. Fill a clean, dry cup with water, then find your dialysis tubing and string envelope. Remove one piece of dialysis tubing from the envelope and place it in the water. You will need to soak the tubing for at least 15 to 20 minutes before it's ready to be used. Next, you will need to prepare the solutions. Use the directions on the next page for how to make the 1% starch solution and 10% glucose solution. The easiest way to make the 1% starch solution is to weigh out on your balance 0.20 grams of starch and 20.0 milliliters of water. To make the 10% glucose solution, you'll need to weigh out 2.00 grams of glucose and 20.0 milliliters of water. Make sure to label one clean dry cup 1% starch and a second clean dry cup 10% glucose. This will help you to keep track of which solution is which. To measure the 20 milliliters of water, use your syringe closed at one end. You can use a dropper pipette to ensure the most accurate reading. Once you have added the 0.20 grams of starch and 20 milliliters of water to the cup, use your spoon to stir. Note, not all the starch will completely dissolve into the solution. This is fine as it will remain slightly cloudy. Follow the same steps to create the glucose solution. Note, when you stir the glucose solution, be sure to either use a different spoon or clean and dry the same spoon thoroughly to ensure you don't contaminate the second solution. Once your solutions have been prepared, you'll need to set up the dialysis tubing. Be sure it has been soaking for 15 to 20 or more minutes before starting. You'll need to tie one end of the dialysis tubing closed, using the string in the envelope labeled dialysis tubing and string. It can be helpful to have an extra set of hands, as this step can be tricky, although not impossible, to do by yourself. Next, open the other end of the tubing. It can be a little bit tricky, but if you roll it between your fingers, this usually helps open the tubing. Insert your funnel into the tubing. Add the starch solution until the tube is about half full. Then the other half will be filled with the glucose solution. Note, you don't want to completely fill the tubing to the top because you'll need to tie the other end, so be sure to leave a few centimeters of room. Once filled, tie off the other end of the tubing. Again, another set of hands can be helpful. In a clean dry cup, or if you have a coffee mug or bowl or Tupperware, fill the container with water and place the tubing into the container. You want to make sure the tubing is completely submerged under the water and is lying as flat as possible on the bottom of the container, but you also don't want a large excess of water either. Here you can see a suitable size container and volume of water being used. Place aside for about an hour. After the hour, we will be testing to see where we find the starch and the glucose. Remember, dialysis tubing is a semi-permeable membrane. Make a prediction based on molecular size of glucose and starch on where you think they will be found. Inside the tubing, outside the tubing, both inside and outside, or neither. 1 hour later. Obtain 2 clean dry cups. Label one cup water inside and label the other cup water outside. You will also need 2 dropper pipettes. Iodine solution. Make sure to keep the iodine away from clothes and skin as it can stain your skin for a few days. And diastics. Remove the tubing from the container and blot dry with a paper towel. The water in the container is the water outside the tubing, so pour some into the cup labeled outside. You can then cut the tubing open with scissors and pour the liquid in the tube into the cup labeled water inside. To test for glucose, we'll be using the Dialysis. Dip one test strip into the liquid and wait about 10 seconds. A positive test result will change from an aqua color to green, yellow, or brown. A negative test will be no change in the original aqua color. To test for starch, we'll be using iodine. You can see the iodine is an amber or orange color. A negative test will result in no color change. A positive test will result in a very dark color change. Be sure to test both starch and glucose in the water inside and the water outside. Which had starch? Which had glucose? Did any have both or none? Why do you think this is? Osmosis versus dialysis. Part 2. Dialysis.